to interpret history from the viewpoint of Islamic eschatology. And so now let us begin with Allah's blessed name. 100 years ago, and we say the world experienced the first Arab Spring. And now 100 years later, the world is experiencing another Arab Spring. And we want to be able to connect them, to show the relationship, how they are connected. There were enormously important events, revolutionary events which occurred in the Arab world 100 years ago. Remember, it was 100 years ago that the center of the Arab world, the Hijaz, Mecca and Medina, experienced great turmoil. The Ottoman Khalifa had appointed Sharif bin Hussein, as the Sharif of Mecca. And it was in 1916 that he revolted, supported by the British and funded by the British to the tune of £7 million. And you want to know where I got that information? That Sharif Hussein took £7 million from the British to revolt against the Ottoman Empire and to declare the Arab world independent of the Ottoman Empire, and then to fight with British troops against the Ottoman troops. And then finally, the Ottoman Empire loses control of the Hijaz, loses control of Mecca and Medina, loses control of the Hajj, and the Islamic credentials of the Ottoman Khalifa are destroyed. And then came, eventually, Saudi rule. This was 100 years ago. But back, where did I get that information from? That the British gave Sharif Hussein bin Ali, that was his name, Sharif Hussein bin Ali, the Sharif of Mecca, in 1914, 1915, 1916, gave him £7 million to revolt against the Khalifa in Constantinople. I wonder how much money they're giving now to all these of Dajjal's warriors who are traveling from all over the places to go to Syria, funded by the Saudi, founded by Qatar, funded by Turkey, funded by NATO, provided weapons by NATO to revolt and to launch this armed insurrection. I don't call it a jihad, I call it a Yankee jihad. You're annoyed with me because of that. But tomorrow you'll understand why you're misguided on the subject. That was 100 years ago. This is today. You see the connection? Where did I get this information from? You can't find this information in any Arab source today. It's all destroyed. But the British have preserved it. The greatest British historian of that era, Arnold Toynbee, edited a journal called the Survey of International Affairs every year. And for the year 1925, you can go to the internet and find it, Survey of International Affairs for 1925. And in that book, it's a big book, you see the evidence that he was paid £7 million to revolt against the Ottoman Khalifa or Caliphate. The Arabs being enticed, the Arabs being deceived to revolt, so that with the Arab revolt against the Ottoman Empire, the Islamic credentials of the Ottoman Empire will be destroyed. And it will be easier now to wage war on the Ottoman Empire, defeat it and destroy the Khilafah. The institution of Khilafah in 1902, that will be just 5 years after the first Zionist Congress and just 4 years after the body of Pharaoh was discovered. The French government gave their blessings for a convention to take place in Paris of all the forces that were opposed to the Khalifa in Istanbul. They're called the Young Turks. Well, the Young Turks was one of the groups. There were also those who were not Turks. They were Armenians and so on. And this convention took place in Paris in 1902. By 1904, Was it 1908? 6 years later. They're able to stage a revolution. And they're able to take over the Ottoman Empire 6 years later. And the Khalifa is now only a figurehead. They are running the show. Secular, nationalist Turks now take over the Ottoman Empire in 1908 in place of the Islamic Khilafah state. They sought to alienate the Arabs so that the Islamic credentials of the Ottoman Empire would be destroyed, so it could end up as a secular Republic of Turkey. And by the time the war began in 1914, the Ottoman Empire was already shaking. And eventually the Ottoman Empire collapsed. And eventually the Khilafah was abolished in 1924. The figurehead was abolished in 1924. This is the first Arab Spring. It is, of course, Turkey here, but the Arabs played a very important role in it. But now I want to turn to something else. At that time, Britain ruled the world. Britain was the ruling power. But over the last 100 years, the United States took over. And now we have the new Arab Spring. So that this Arab Spring will witness the transfer of power from the United States to Israel. The time has come now for Israel to attempt to rule the world. In the same way that there were great wars 100 years ago, and the Second World War was a mopping up operation to ensure that the whole of Rome is now under the control of the communists, so too 100 years later we have great wars right around the corner. And is this time for us to go and have dinner and go to sleep? Or should we be attempting to anticipate what's going to happen and to prepare ourselves for it to respond appropriately? If great wars are coming around the corner, what should we do? Does the Quran not order us to build power?